Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In section 7.4, we will discuss sorting and searching with arrays. In this section, we will start with selection sort. The idea behind selection sort is that if you have an array, you need to sort the elements from the smallest to the largest value or the other way around. So in ascending or descending order. And the idea behind it is you have to find the minimum value and then you have to move it to its correct location. So let's do it through an example. Let's assume we have the following array. We have an array that we will have the elements 7, 2, 8, 5, and 4. Now we will start from the first location, which is index 0, and we will go and find which one is the minimum element in the whole array, and then we have to move it to location 0. So starting from location 0, we will do a search and we will find that the minimum is 2. So now our second step is to do a swap between 2 and 7. So the idea was behind it as in this location, location 0, go and find the minimum value in the whole array, and we found that the minimum is actually 2. So what we have to do a swap between 2 and 7, which means we have to move the minimum to the location at index 0. We have to move the minimum value to the first location in the array, which means now 2 is in its correct location. Our second step now is go to location 1, and you have to go and do the same thing. So now we are looking at index 1, and then in this location we have to find which one is the minimum in the remaining array, and then we have to move it to location 1. So when you do a search now, start with 7, 8, 5, and 4, and you will find 4 is the minimum. So you have to move 4 to location 1. So now in this phase, we found that 4 is the minimum, and that's why we move it there. So we have 2 and 4, they are in the correct order. And now when we have to continue, I have to continue from number 8, which is at location 2. So this is to deal with location 2. Now starting from location 2, similarly, go and find which one is the minimum. So we have to move it to this location. So 8, 5, and 7, the minimum is 5. Go and find it and do a swap. And this says now we have to go and check location 3. So at this location, go and find which one is the minimum that we should move it to location 3. We have only 2 elements now, 8 and 7. 7 is the minimum, so we have to move it there. And this should be the end of this array. So now we have all the elements. They are sorted from the smallest to the largest value. So we can summarize selection sort as follow. Always you will have your array, and always the idea of selection sort is find the minimum. So you have to start with first location, and then you have to do a search from the beginning till the end of the array. Whatever the minimum there in your array, you have to bring it to the beginning of your array. So if you find, for example, you have 1 here and 1 is the minimum value, so I have to bring 1 to my first location, and this will be as 1. And whatever number is there in location 0, we have to move it to there. So for example, if we have 100 there before, I'll just have to move it till we do a swap with the previous location. Now if you do this, it means now you have moved the minimum value to your first location. The second thing is go and find about the location at location 1. So you have to go there and you have to do a search again, which one I have to move it to this location. And you keep moving till the end of your array. Which means now in this, we have to do the following. I have to have a for loop such that it will go with each index in my array. So it will go, for example, if I have the following example, we have 5 elements. We have to go with index 1. sorry, index 0, index 1, index 3, and index 2 and index 3. For example, we will not do index 4 because in index 4, this is index 4 and this is the end of the array. So we don't have anything to compare with. So always my first loop, I will have to go through all the elements up to length -1. So if the size is 5, we have to go less than 4. If the size is 9, we have to go less than 8, and so on. Inside each one of these, I have to find the minimum. So inside the for loop, I have to do something similar to this. If index is 0, start from 0 till the end of the array to find the minimum. If index is 1, start from index 1 till the end of the array to find the minimum. So we have to go and we should have another for loop. And the main aim of this for loop is we have to find the minimum value. Once you have your minimum value, just before you go to the second index, you have to do a swap. You have to move the minimum to the correct location, which means I have to do a second step, which is a swap. So again, as summary, we need a for loop to do the iteration up to length -1. We need another for loop to find the minimum, and then we need a swap to move the minimum element to its correct location. Now about the coding of the selection sort, let's go through the coding. Assume we have the following. We have the public static void main. We have integer bracket list equal in new integer 4, which means we created an array of size 4. And then as usual, we have a scanner. We are asking the user for values. We have a for loop to do the reading of the values. And then we are reading the values and saving them in list at location I. So I'm saying enter for integers. If the user says the numbers are 10, 12, 4, and 1, it means in our array, my elements will be as 10, 12, 4, and 1. So this is my array, which we are calling as list, and the numbers will be saved according to their input in location 0, 1 up to the end of the array. Now the second step we have to do is we have to go and sort our array in ascending order. If you notice, the numbers we are having in our array, they are not sorted. They should be changed such that the first one should be the minimum, so we should have 1 here. The second one, it should be 4, and then we should have 10, and then we should have 12. So then when we do the output, we will have the numbers sorted from the smallest to the largest value. The last piece of the code in your main method, this is only to do the output of the elements in the array. And of course, once you do the sorting, the elements will be sorted. Now, our main method is divided into two steps: creating the array, reading the values, and then at the end we are doing an output of the values. In between, we have to do the processing of the selection sort. Instead of writing the code of the selection sort, which we discussed in the previous slide, within the same main method, we are creating a separate method, a small method, to do the selection sort. And this method is called selection sort. So we will call the method. So this is, we'll call the method selection sort. And as parameter, we are sending list. So we will send the original array with the original number. So we will have the same numbers as the user entered, which are 10, 12, 4, and 1. We will call the array, we will call the method. The method will take this array, it will do the sorting for us, and then once we come back to the main, the array will be sorted, and then we can do the output. So from the main method, we are doing only the reading, and then we will call the method. The method will handle the selection sort. Once we come back to the main, and then the main should do the output of the array, which will be having the elements sorted from the smallest to the largest value. So let's go and find the coding of the selection sort. So we have public static void selection sort. This is the name of my method. As parameter, we have integer bracket list, which means we are taking as parameter an array. The name of the array as list. So let's assume we have our array as list. The element we have, just like in the previous slide, we have 10, 12, 4, and 1. Now, just like what we did in the first slide about selection sort, the idea of selection sort is summarized as you should have iterations up to length -1, and then in these iteration you have to find minimum. Once you find the minimum, you have to do the swap. So that's why you will notice I have a for loop here to go with the iteration up to length -1. Inside this iteration, I will do 2 steps. The first one is find the minimum. The second step, I'll have to do a swap. So let's do it step by step to see how the coding is working with finding the minimum. Now at the beginning, I'm saying let's start with index 0. So we have index as 0. Index should be less than list.length -1. And this is just like what we discussed in the previous slide. With the selection sort, we go up to length -1. And then we will start executing inside the for loop. Our first step is go and find the minimum. Usually the idea of finding minimum, like we discussed in the previous lecture, is you have to assume that the first element is the minimum, and then you have to start comparing other elements. So we have here, I have minimum index equal index and minimum equal list of index. And remember, we are starting index with 0. So if index is 0, I'm saying minimum should be equal list of 0 and minimum index equal index, which is 0. So I'm saying this number, which is 10, I'm assuming this is the minimum value, and it's located at location 0, so this is my minimum index. Now we have to go and search from location 1 up to the end of the array, and we have to find, do we have another minimum or not? That's why I need another loop, and I will have it as an I will start from index +1. If index currently we have it as 0, 0 plus 1, it means we will start from location 1 up to the end of the array. If you have any element that is less than the minimum, change the value of the minimum and change the location. So it will work as follow. 12, is it less than the minimum, which is 10? It's not. 4, is it less than the minimum? Yes. So the idea now then is we have to move to change the minimum and the minimum index. So minimum will be 4 and the minimum index will be in location 2. Still we have to continue till the end of the array. We have 1. 1, is it smaller than the minimum, which is 4? Yes. So this is 1. In which location? In location 3. And by that, we will finish this piece, which is finding the minimum. So once we finish this step, we have the minimum value as 1. And in which location? Location 3. So it's more like I'm saying the following. I'm saying I found that 1 is the minimum value and it's located in location 3. So what we need to do, we have to do a swap now, because 1 is the minimum. It means I have to move it to the beginning of my array. So the swap should be between two numbers, between the element at location 0 and between the element at location 1. So in terms of variables, the element at location 0, we are referring to it as index. And the element at location 3, which is we are referring to it as minimum index. So we have to do a swap between list at location index and list at minimum index. And this will be our second step. And as you are aware from Java 1, the previous course, always if you need to do a swap, you have to create a temp variable. So we are saying integer temp equal list of index equal list of minimum index equal temp. So we are just doing small thing like this. I'm having temp. Temp at the beginning should equal list of index. So I'm saying this is list of index and just save it in temp. So temp will be 10. And the list of index equal list of minimum index. List of index should be changed and it should equal list of minimum index, which is 1. So we have 1 here. And then list of minimum index, which is this number, should be changed and it should hold the value of temp, which is 10. So by the end of the first iteration, what we did, starting from location 0, we went through all the elements and we found the minimum value, which is 1 at location 3. And then we did a swap between location 0 and location 3. So by that, we moved the minimum value to its correct location at the beginning. Now my array still is not sorted. All what we did is moving only one element to the beginning. So that's why we have to go back and we have to go to the second thing. Going back, it means index plus plus. Index plus plus, which means now index will be having value 1. So it's more like we are currently talking about this element. 1 was already sorted from the previous iteration, so I'll have to leave it. And I'll have to think about the elements in this range, which is 12, 4, and 10. We have to find which one is the minimum and we have to move it to location 1. So again, we will start the whole process of finding which one is the minimum and then we have to move it to its location by doing a swap. So let's start a fresh thing. Index equal 1. 1 is it less than length minus 1, which is I'm having length as 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. So 1 less than 3, true. We will go inside. My first step is finding the minimum. Now when we find the minimum, I have to start from location 1, not from location 0. Because as we mentioned, in the first location, 1 is already sorted. So what I have to find now, I have to go and find from this location, location 1, up to the end of the array. That's why we say minimum index equal index, not minimum index equal 0. That's why we say minimum index equal 1. It's more like I'm assuming now this is my array. So I'll just draw it like this. This is my array, a subset of array. And I have to assume that in this location, this is the first one, and I'll have to find the minimum. Now, minimum index is 1. The value inside this minimum is 12. And then we have the loop that it will go and find the minimum values. So I have I, and I should start from index plus 1. Remember, index now is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So start from location 2 up to the end of the array. If you have any element less than the minimum, then you have to change minimum and you have to change minimum index. So I'm having here, I have to compare 4. Is it less than the minimum, which is currently 12? Yes. So we should have minimum as 4 and the location as location 2. Now go to the end, 10. 10 is it less than the minimum, which is 4? It's not. So I will not do any changes and we will be done with phase 1, which is finding the minimum. So by that, we started from location 1 up to the end of the array. We assume that the first one is the minimum, which is at location 1 at index. And then starting from 2, go and find if you have another minimum value. If you have, you do you have to record this. That's why I have minimum here at the end as 4 and it's located at location 2. Now what we need to do next is, because we found that 4 is the minimum, so I have to move it to location 1, and whatever we have in location 1 we have to move it to location 2. We need to do a swap, and as we mentioned, the swap will be between two elements, the element at location 1 and the element at location 2. And the element at location 1, we are referring to it as index. The element at location 2, this is the location of the minimum. So this is the variable as minimum index. So here we have to do a swap, and here again we have to say temp equal element at index equal element at minimum index, the element at minimum index equals temp. So here we will have again to do the same thing. I'm saying I'll have to declare temp. Temp should equal the element at index, which is 12, and then the element at index should be changed, and the value we should have it as 4. So we should have this one changed, and the value will be as 4. And then the element at minimum index should equal temp, so this one should be changed, and it should be as 12. So now your array will be having the following values. I have 1, we have 4 there, we have 12, and then we have 10. And again, 1 and 4, they have been moved to their correct location, but still 12 and 10, they will need extra work. That's why, again, you have to go back to your beginning and you have to do the processing. So here again, you will have to say, I should have index, and the value of the index this time, it was 1. 1 plus 1, it will be as 2, and you will have to repeat the same processing. So again, you have to find the minimum value, and then you have to do a swap. So here you have to find the minimum. So we are located at location 2, and I'll have to do only a search in this space. Which one is the minimum? As we can see, the minimum is 10, so I have to move it to location 2. So it means this one should be changed, and this one should be as 10. And here we should have as 12. So this is 10, and this is as a 12. And then this will be the last iteration, because if we go back, index will be 3, and we know that we have to go up to length minus 1. And at the end, I will have my array. They are sorted, and we have the elements as 1, 4, 10, and 12. And this is sorted in ascending order from the smallest to the largest value. So always the idea is you should go with iteration. So always you'll have to go from the beginning till the end of your array minus 1. So we have here a loop, and the loop here will start from 0 up to length minus 1. Within this loop, you have 2 steps. You have to find the minimum. Once you find the minimum, you have to do a swap. Remember, finding the minimum, you don't need to start from 0. You have to start from your current index. So if your index is 0, you have to start from location 0. If your index is 1, you have to start from location 1 till the end of the array. That's why we say minimum index equal the current index, and then start the loop and find the minimum. Once you are done with the minimum, then you have to do a swap. Always the swap between index and the minimum index. So if we have that this is our index, and we found the minimum at location 3, this is minimum index, so we have to do the swap between these 2 elements, and that's why we need to say do a swap between index and minimum index. And you will go with the iteration till your array is sorted. Once this method is done, it will go back to the main method, and from the main method you will do the output of the sorted elements. One of the techniques that we can use is we can get rid of the variable minimum. In the previous slide, we had to declare here another variable. We call it as integer min, and it's equal to the array at location minimum index or location index. But actually we can get rid of this statement, because as you notice, once we find the minimum, we have to do the swap between index and minimum index. So we don't need the actual value inside the array. And can be done easily by doing the following. We can just say, I have to declare a variable minimum index and its equal index, just like the previous slide. You have the normal loop. So starting from location 1 till the end of the array, do a search. Now the small thing is, instead of saying list of I is less than minimum, I'm just removing minimum and I'm saying list at minimum index. So if I have minimum index as 0 and location I, for example, is starting from 1, which is having the value 12. So I'm saying go and compare the element at I with the element at minimum index. If it is smaller, then change it. And then increment I, so I'll go there. The element at I, which is 2, is it smaller than the minimum index? So we are just reducing the steps of removing the minimum variable. And then once you are done with finding the minimum, all what you have to do is you have to do the swap. So again, I'm having 2 steps, find the minimum, and I have the other step, which is doing the swap between index and minimum index. The 2 codes in this slide and the previous slide, they are exactly the same. They will do the same job. The small difference is because we don't need the value of the minimum, we can just get rid of it and we can just use only the minimum index. If you refer to your textbook, the way it was written in your textbook as they subdivide the coding into 3 methods instead of 1. So in the previous slide, we have only 1 method. It will do the whole selection sort. In the textbook, they are separating it into 3 methods. So the first one is the selection sort. It will take an array and we will have the same loop, but it will go from the beginning till length -1. Now, instead of having the code of minimum and swap within the for loop, again, it was subdivided into smaller method. So I have one method to find the minimum. I have another method to do the swap. So for example, this method, it will call the other method, and it will do the job of finding the minimum and it will return the index. And then the other method will do the calling of the swap and it will do the swap between index and minimum index. So again, this is another way of writing your coding. You can have it as one code of one method, or you can break it down into number of methods. We have other sorting algorithms as well, which we can use it from Java class library, and it will do the sorting for us. And all what you have to do, you have to include utility arrays at the beginning of your file. So let's assume we have the following. We have integer bracket list. We have a new integer 4. So we have an array and the number of elements are 4. And then we will ask the user for values as usual by having a for loop. And we will assume that this is our array and we have the elements as 10, 2, 4, and 3. Now, instead of writing the coding in our file, we can utilize the arrays library within Java. So basically, we can just have a statement that says arrays.sort, and between a bracket, we mention list. So we can just have the following statement, arrays. So this is the utility library. Dot sort means it will do the sorting of our elements. Between brackets, this is the name of my array. My array is called list, is defined as list within the main method. And that's why between brackets, I'll have to mention the name of my array. The way it will work, it will call the library, and then it will take this one, and it will do the sorting for us. So it will sort it such that we should have the first element as 2, and then we should have 3, we should have 4, we should have 10. And then once we go and we do the output of the elements, it will do the output of the elements we have in our array, which are the sorted element as 2, 3, 4, and 10. So we can use the coding of the selection sort we did in the previous slide, or we can use the array utility library by just saying arrays.sort between a bracket the name of the array, and it will do the sorting for us. The other part of this section is talking about sequential search. The idea of sequential search, we did a practice on this idea several times in previous sessions. And the idea was go and search for a specific element in your array from the beginning till the end. So let's assume we have the following. I have, for example, integer bracket list. So this is the name of my array. And I'm having a number of elements as -1, 2, 5, -10. So I'm having 4 elements. Now a sequential search could be, for example, searching for negative numbers, or searching for odd numbers, or do a search for elements greater than 10, for example. Always when you do a search, a sequential search, as you start from the beginning, so I will start from 0 up to the end of the array, so I should go up list.length, and you will move from the beginning till the end, so I plus plus. And then because you are doing a search, it's a must you should have an if condition. I'm looking for negative numbers. I will say go to the element at I if it is less than 0. If it is negative, the action we have to do is we have to do an output, so we have to print line. So the idea of sequential search, we did practice this several times before when we did several searching methods for looking for different items. But in this method, it's a small one of how to go from the beginning till the end of your array, and then you need to find negative numbers.